When one first comes to the Sangha, one should live in a community, because one has to learn a lot. And by learning a lot, one finds out about the Sangha and finds one's own place in it and what its worth is, and one learns the basis of the practice, basis of the meditation practice. If you start going off on your own too quickly, you're likely to find either disappointment or trouble. Disappointment can come because one hasn't taken enough account of one's own kilesas. One's own kilesas are there, and when one puts on the robe, the kilesas are still there. They don't just fly away when you put on the yellow robes. And because of that, wherever one goes, one takes one's kilesas with one. One takes the trouble with one, because they're inside. Because of that, you need to get the first grounding where there are other people who can keep you straight, where you can test yourself against other people, and in fact get rid of quite a number of the kilesas. The sort of outer ones, the more gross things, can be got rid of there. When one has done enough in the community, and one has learnt what's necessary, then one can go off on one's own, into the forest or wherever one wants. And one can then gain value, but not everybody. Some people find that they go off to the forest and their mind's just wandering. They can't keep it still. They can't get down to the practices they used to. And those people probably are not suited to go to the forest. Certainly not to begin with anyway. For the person who goes off to the forest, the advantages are, of course, that they can practice their own meditation without hindrance, without having to do a lot of chores and duties, and without having to refer to anyone else. These are quite valuable things for the person, but if they're not careful, they can go the wrong way, and they can start getting upset, even angry at the difficulties in the forest, because there are difficulties. And if one's got the right attitude, the difficulties are a very good teacher. They're one of the best teachers, in fact. I mean, if you meet up with wild animals, tigers and the like, then you know there that you're face to face with a tiger. He can eat you up if he wants, and it's the only thing you've got on your side is Dhamma. And if you bring up the Dhamma, you'll be okay. But one's got to bring up the Dhamma and not just give way to fear. And many people give way to fear. This isn't good. The tiger may not eat you, but still it set up within you something which might cause a lot of trouble if you give way to it. The difficulty is that when fear comes up, it comes up strong, unbidden, and catches you off balance, sort of, and you don't know what to do. And that fear can sort of take over. It takes over and controls you. A person can just sort of stand there quivering. And if he doesn't get back to Dhamma, if he doesn't get the idea of Dhamma in his mind, he may go mad. No. It can cause a lot of damage. But if he's strong enough, and if he's done enough practice for the Dhamma to come up in his mind, then it can be very valuable. The overcoming of that fear is one of the major things that's necessary. Fear, as Tanachan Mahabua says, fear is an enemy which comes up in the guise of a friend. It makes out that it's a friend warning you, but in fact it makes you do all the wrong things. And because of that, the fear must be overcome. Going to the forest can be of great advantage. There's no doubt about it. But one shouldn't too easily go to the forest. One must remember, you may have problems coming up and questions coming up. And the way of those who go to the forest mostly is that if they have problems they can't solve, they go back to the teacher and ask him. It may be just a visit for half an hour, and then they go back to the forest again. But one must keep in touch with the teacher. The other thing to watch out for in the forest, of course, particularly for Farangs, is the effect of food. The food you get in the villages is often quite insufficient, and sometimes it's not even good. You might get stomach trouble. In fact, many do. The putting up with stomach trouble is also a good thing to do. But health does need looking at a little bit. One mustn't just sort of blindly think that one can go on and neglect one's health. That's not the way of Dhamma either. The way of the Dhamma and the way the teachers say is one shouldn't put oneself in difficulties unnecessarily. If one does that, one's careless, one's being careless. And carelessness is one of the things that they all say one should not develop. One should overcome. One should always be careful and watchful. And both of these things strengthen one's mindfulness.
I was talking with a friend today, and we were talking about the nature of, like, one of us was under the impression that the kilesas, the defilements are in the khandhas, and then another one of us was under the impression that the kilesas are in the chitta. And there's a big misunderstanding about what's the chitta. It's like, is it number 6 on top of the 5 khandhas?
No, you can see what the 5 khandhas are. First of all, you've got the body, and that's part of the world. And that's the first khandha. It's made of the world, it's made of the substance of this world. It relies on the world, depends on it. It's completely geared to the world. Most of the things we do depend on the body and the world. You look round you, this building for instance, why is it this shape and this size? It's because of the human body. And why are the stairs like that just spread so much? Because that's the height we can step. And why do we have the lights on? Because we need lights to see things, because of our eyes. If we didn't have eyes, we wouldn't need light. You look at the things all around you, where the body comes in, you find they're endless. So the body is part of the world. And the other khandhas, the feeling, memory, thought and consciousness, those 4, they depend on the body. And when the body dies, they just break up and disappear. Without the body, there's no support to them. I mean, it only requires a doctor to inject some anaesthetic into oneself, and the khandhas, all you're left with is nothing. The body goes on as a function. The other khandhas, as far as we know, they all cease temporarily. And when one comes round again, it starts to work again. And these khandhas, they're dependent on the body, and there's nothing absolute about them at all. And they're not kilesas either, because they depend on the body. They're neutral. They're neutral like the body. And they're really not part of oneself fundamentally. They're for our use. I use the simile of a computer. The body's like the hardware, and it's got to be there. The four namakandas are like the software, and the computer's no good without the software. You've got